Of MLB This Week. It's the MLB This Week show. It's a special Father's Day edition of talking about baseball on MLB This Week. And my name is Rich Baxter.
And I'm Gary Mack.
And we're talking baseball with you every week here on the video podcast and also our audio podcast. And happy Father's Day, Gary.
And happy Father's Day to you, Rich, and to all the fathers out there. I hope everybody had a great day. It was terrific weather, and hope they all had a great day and got what they wanted and did what they wanted to do today.
Yeah, it's always a great day when you can have a few special dinners, perhaps, or going out with the family, take it easy, not do much work, of course, if you can help it. I know people still have to work out there probably 7 days a week, but one day that we can say that we have of our own here, Father's Day.
That's for sure, and I did wash a dish or two today, so I hope I didn't violate any Father's Day laws, but it was a great day, and the Mets even won a ball game, so good day for me.
Yeah, the Mets are almost like the Phillies, and we've been talking about that a few times on our individual shows that we do. Of course, Gary does Mets Musings, Mets podcast you can find on iTunes and at MetsMusings.com. And I do a Phillies show over at FightinPhillies.com called Phillies Talk. So if you want to check those shows out, if you listen to what our teams are doing, we'd appreciate it. And Gary, you're going to kick off the show at MLB This Week with a great Father's Day story in baseball.
Yes, sir. Rich, MLB.com had a great story on the 10 best father-son teams based on WAR. Now, you know, WAR is wins above replacements. I'm not a big sabermetrics guy, or sabermetrics. And but I just thought this was an interesting thing to throw out there. And here they are in order from number 10 to number 1. Number 10 being Tim Raines and Tim Raines Jr. They did play a couple of games together on the Baltimore Orioles. Jose Cruz and Jose Cruz Jr., and they had a combined WAR of 73.7. Tony Gwynn and Tony Gwynn Jr. had a combined WAR 74.7. And Felipe Alou and Moises Alou. And interesting that they both played 17 big league seasons. Of course, not together, but they both did play 17 seasons. 78.9 for them WAR. And the next, number 6, is the Boone. You'd have to say the Boone family, because we have a father and a son, and a grandson and a grandson. As it's Ray Boone is the father. And then his son was Bob Boone, who you're familiar with. And, of course, Bob Boone's sons and Ray Boone's grandsons, Aaron Boone and Brett Boone, and they had a combined WAR of 89.1. The next combination coming in at 5 is Sandy Alomar Jr., and Hall of Famer Roberto Alomar, and they come in with a combined WAR of 91. And an original Met is next, Gus Bell and his son Buddy Bell and his son David and Michael Bell. They came in with a combined WAR of 96.8. Number 3 is Ken Griffey Jr., combined WAR 118. No introduction needed for them. And going back in time, Eddie Collins is number 2, and Eddie Collins Jr., and they had a combined WAR of 122.9. And number 1 on this list, of course, is Barry Bonds and Bobby Bonds with a combined WAR of 220.1. So a little Father's Day story there. And the 10 best father-son teams. And, you know, Rich, we must be getting old, because when you start remembering guys and you watch the father and the sons are also finished with their careers, it's a sign we're getting old.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, of course, baseball is great for nepotism like that. There's no better way than to get into baseball than to be a son of a superstar. And like you said, Gary, some of those players actually turn out to be bigger stars than their fathers. I think you could argue that Ken Griffey Jr. is probably a better career than Ken Griffey Sr. And so,
Without a doubt.
yeah, Barry Bonds probably eclipsed Bobby Bonds in his career with all those home runs, despite the fact that he might have been on the steroids. But and even Prince Fielder, you could argue that he may be a better player than his father, Cecil Fielder.
That's a good point, and don't forget Roberto Alomar was a Hall of Famer, definitely a better career than his father, Sandy Alomar, who had a fine career, and coached for many years, and just taking those, the Alomars combined for 19 All-Star appearances, 11 Gold Gloves, a Rookie of the Year, and a Hall of Fame, of course, is Roberto Alomar. So, yeah, it's interesting just to see. Again, I'm not a big sabermetrics guy, but it was an interesting article to see, and glad they put it together just in time for Father's Day.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I'm not a big sabermetrics fan either, although I like to read it. It's good for people that read on the web and they want to look at numbers and all that. But I don't live and die with sabermetrics myself. Interesting aspect of the game, but not a be-all, end-all for me, for sure.
Right, I'm sure there's a place for it, but as you said, you can't use it as your sole way of picking a team.
Exactly. Yeah. But there are people out there. I know, for example, the Phillies just hired a sabermetrics guy, and they weren't at all into sabermetrics until this season. So that goes to show you they were sort of under pressure to hire somebody that crunches numbers, and I think he's a lawyer as well, so that kind of fits in with everything. But as you can see, it didn't help the Phillies. So sabermetrics, can give or take it with me. It doesn't make much sense when you talk about how many ground balls go through a guy's hands, and is he going to catch it this time? You just can't predict that stuff. It's like predicting the lottery.
Yep, and if you could do that, there'd be a lot more teams spending money maybe on rosters.
That's for sure. Well, we're going to head into our second story of the week here on MLB This Week, and I want to take 10 seconds here to apologize to the listeners. I had a mic problem on the last show. I didn't realize my mic was so low, so I switched to a mic that you could probably hear me better this week. Just wanted to apologize to the listeners for that. And my first story up this week is one that both Gary and I had on our list that we exchanged with one another. Of course, it was the 75th anniversary of the National Baseball Hall of Fame. They started way back in June 12th of 1939, and wow, it's fast 75 years went by, Gary.
Quite a place and a great anniversary, and it doesn't seem like it would be that long ago, but I guess I remember when I was a kid, 1939 wasn't that long ago, and it's interesting because I remember as a kid reading about John McGraw and all those guys. I'd love to read about the old baseball history, the old timers, and now I guess kids today are watching or reading about Tom Seaver and Orlando Cepeda and Willie Mays, and those are like the old timers to them. So, but the Hall of Fame, terrific anniversary, and they did a big thing with Babe Ruth, didn't they?
Yeah, they just this past week as well, they opened a Babe Ruth exhibit. And we have a photo here from the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Of course, Cal Ripken there cutting part of the ribbon, and a few of the Hall of Fame executives. And why don't you tell the listeners who that gentleman with the gray hair is?
Well, it looks a little like Tony Bennett, but it's not. It's really Phil Niekro, the knuckleballer Hall of Fame pitcher for the Atlanta Braves, and Phil had a long career, and it's good to see Phil because he waited some time to get in, and it seems like when some of these guys don't go in right away, and then they get in, they throw themselves into all the activities with the Hall of Fame, and that's good to see because the people see them at these events, and it really gives a lot of credence to it. Now, Cal Ripken, of course, he didn't have to wait long for his induction in there, but good to see him there too. And we're back to Babe Ruth again, Rich. We always seem to end up on Babe Ruth, but
Yeah.
in my book, he's the greatest that ever played. And what else can you say?
Yeah, he's one of those heroes of baseball that, at least when I grew up, everything was about Babe Ruth. You had the Babe Ruth League, which was right before you went into high school. It was players up to 15 years old, I think, or 16, maybe even 17. But yeah, Babe Ruth is starting to get his due from the Hall of Fame, of course, and I wouldn't be so surprised if we didn't see a movement to maybe try to retire number 3 across the league. It seems like more teams are doing this, with certain players, and I just wouldn't be surprised to see that one day.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I never even thought of that, but that could be an interesting movement that starts to take hold.
Yeah, and that first class had some great names of baseball included in it, and it was interesting because the Baseball Hall of Fame published a picture at Google Plus, which it talked about the diamond anniversary, the 75th anniversary of the inaugural class there. Of course, Babe Ruth was part of that, and there was a lot of players that are part of that as well, but they didn't put all their names down, and one of the comments was, names, please, from this one gentleman that wrote on the Google Plus there, which we actually did what's called +1, which means, yeah, give us their names across the bottom there. John McCall and guys like that, like you were mentioning earlier, Gary, I think he's part of the class, but that's what you see when you go to the Hall of Fame, actually. They've got a big wall with the first class, and they've got a wall all by themselves, so you can see all their plaques, and they're really, really astounding. Again, I recommend it.
It's a great place to visit, and we keep trying to get back up there, and I think within the next hopefully this year or maybe next year, if I can retire, that would be a great side trip.
Yeah. We usually stop off up there if we can on our way to Niagara Falls. We've been up there a few times, so it's sort of a nice halfway point, good place to hang your hat for the night on the trip up to the great north there.
Yes.
Well, that'll lead us up to our next story of the week, and you have that one for us, Gary.
Well, Rich, I know you're going to be talking a little bit later about the All-Star voting, but this week the coaches were named to the staffs, and Rodden Gardenhire, who, of course, it's in his home stadium, will be in the dugout with the AL All-Stars at his home stadium. The Minnesota manager was chosen along with Cleveland's Terry Francona as coaches to join AL manager John Farrell in the July 15th All-Star Game at Target Field. For the NL, manager Mike Matheny of St. Louis chose Clint Hurdle of Pittsburgh and Freddie Gonzalez of Atlanta as his coaching staff. Francona has himself managed the AL team before in 2005 and 2008, and interesting enough, in 2008, Farrell served as his pitching coach for the game. And Gardenhire, who has managed the Twins since 2002, has been an AL coach in 2003 and 2007. So, coach's name for the All-Star Game, and in a little bit, I know we're going to give the results so far, and we'll see who those coaches may be coaching.
Yeah, some surprises on that list. New York seems like it's got behind a player, and we'll talk about him in a minute. But, yeah, as you said, the All-Star Game coming upon us in about a month now. and very interesting. It's going to be in Minnesota for the first time in a very long time, but I'm not even sure that they've hosted it before. I didn't do the research on that, but it's going to be interesting to have the spotlight on a new town that perhaps most of us haven't heard much about.
Right, and they might have had one in the Dome Stadium. I don't recall, or it may go back even earlier than that in the other outdoor stadium, Memorial Stadium, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they got a new stadium, fairly, a couple years old now, and it'll be interesting to see that and to watch the All-Star game there.
Yep, and here's a little preview of what the logo looks like. One of the logos, I know they have several for the All-Star game. This one, of course, mentioning that it's in Minnesota with the Twins there. And Gary, of course, last year you guys hosted the All-Star game over in New York there, and that was probably a thrill.
Oh, it was a big thrill having it here, and there was lots of fan fest and stuff, and went really well. Thank goodness there was no problems, and everybody had a good time, and it was a huge, huge success. And that's a good thing. They needed it here. They needed something to boost the baseball attendance and just the baseball charisma in the city, as the Yankees were struggling last year, and they continue to struggle. And of course, the Mets have struggled the last number of years. So yeah, and it was a lot of fun having it here, and it was great. They had a lot of activities, and it might even be better in a small town like Minnesota, because things are probably going to be closer together than they were in New York. Sometimes things get spread out here. Events are in Manhattan, and the games in Queens, so the different boroughs. But it was great having it here, and hopefully it'll come back again, maybe in our lifetime. Who knows? Maybe not, but
Yeah.
it's always a fun time.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like a lot of the teams that get the All-Star game, of course, have new stadiums built. And the Phillies had built a new stadium back in 2004, and I kind of thought the All-Star game would be within a couple years now. Now the stadium's already 10 years old, so it's going to be interesting to see when Philadelphia next gets the game. The last game there was 1976, so I guess there's a lot of competition for that game all over the country, of course.
Well, and they also say that you have to apply for it, and some franchises may or may not want to apply for it. I don't know why. It's cash. It's a great event. It brings a lot of people into the city, but because we couldn't figure out for years why the Mets hosted it in 1964, and of course it was not again until 2013. And but after the reading, I remember reading somewhere that again you have to request it, and some teams don't always want to have it. I guess it's a monumental task putting together, but it's a kind of event that's very successful, and worked out well last year, so and I'm sure it'll be great in Minnesota. And I'm not sure in 2015. I think it goes to Cincinnati, I believe, but I can't say for sure. So we'll have to see. Maybe we can get to one of those games, Rich.
Yeah, that would be nice. We'll find out. Some sad news in the past week in baseball, Gary. Old LA Dodgers pitcher there, Bob Welsh, passed away at the somewhat young age anymore, 57 years old. It was announced that he passed away this past week, and no real details on how he passed away. But I remember Bob Welsh well pitching for the Dodgers, and then, of course, if you're watching the video podcast, on the left is what Bob looked like most recently around the Oakland Athletics there. But sad news in baseball with Bob Welsh's passing.
And of course, he had that big outbreak season in in '78 in his rookie year when he had that great World Series, and really that put his name on the map, and won a Cy Young Award. Won the last major league pitcher to win at least 25 games in the season, and two-time All-Star. Really a shame. What can you say, young man, 57, and he had some problems in his life and in his career, but still sad to see anyone go at such a young age.
Yeah, a 17-year career there for Bob Welsh. He compiled a 211 win and 146 loss record with 1,969 strikeouts and a 3.47 ERA overall over his 17-year career. So, as you said, he did break out right away into fame with the Dodgers in 1978. As a 21-year-old rookie, he struck out Reggie Jackson with 2 men on base and 2 out in the top of the ninth in Game 2 of the 1978 World Series against the Yankees. So that's a hell of a way to make an entrance into the league as a 21-year-old rookie.
It sure is, and had a successful career. And again, it's just 57 is too young to go.
Yes, indeed. Well, our condolences out there to Bob Welsh's family and fans of Bob Welsh out there. And Gary, we've had some All-Star voting results come in the past week. They generally update them on Mondays, so we're giving out some old news, so to speak, because we do our show on Sundays. But if you don't mind, I'll go ahead with some of those results.
Be my guest.
All right. As of Monday, June 9th, the first baseman in the National League, the leader is Adrian Gonzalez for the Dodgers. He's got a slim under 100,000 vote lead over Paul Goldschmidt from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Over at second base, Chase Utley seems like he's running away with it here. He's got 1.3 million votes, almost one of the highest vote getters amongst some of the infielders there. Some other players have much higher results, but Chase Utley so far looks like a shoo-in for second base. David Wright has climbed up to the top of the heap in third baseman, and it looks like New York is getting behind David Wright all of a sudden.
Well, David Wright is I have to honestly say, he's not having an all-star type year. He's been struggling as of late, but it's really not about that all the time. It's about who do people want to see play, and if the people are voting for David Wright, that's fine. Always great to see him get into the starting lineup.
Yeah, so David Wright, he's got about a 75,000 vote lead, so New York, keep it up if you want to see David Wright in this game. Shortstop, this is one of the highest votes. In fact, it is the highest vote of any player in the National League. Troy Tulowitzki at shortstop, he's got over 2 million votes to lead the shortstops there.
Wow, no surprise though. He started off hot, having a pretty good year, and I'm not surprised. He's a good player, and he's pretty much stayed healthy so far this first half. So, tip of the cap to Troy Tulowitzki.
Yep, and over at catcher we have Yadier Molina for the Cardinals. He's got a 1.6 million votes in so far. A big lead over Buster Posey. San Francisco and Giant fans are going to have to really get out there and make their vote count here. He's got about a 550,000 lead over Posey. And for the outfields, we have Yasiel Puig leading all outfielders at first with 1.4 million votes. Giancarlo Stanton for the Marlins, 1.2 million. And then Carlos Gomez of the Brewers, 1.19 million. A bunch close behind him, though. Andrew McCutchen of the Pirates, Charlie Blackmon of the Rockies, and Ryan Braun are very close to Gomez. So we'll have to see how that works out. And that's it for the National League so far. Over to the American League. The highest vote total, we're going to start out with that one, is an outfielder, and that's Jose Bautista from the Toronto Blue Jays. He's got 2.1 million votes in so far. Mike Trout, second at 1.9 votes, 1.9 million that is. And Melky Cabrera of the Blue Jays also, 1,096,000 votes as of this last update, which was about a week ago from today. So those are your outfielders for the American League leaders. Miguel Cabrera leading first baseman, Robinson Cano, 1.1 million votes, or Cano as most Yankee fans pronounce his name. Josh Donaldson leads all vote getters for the third baseman, 1.4 million votes. And over at shortstop, Derek Jeter, the fan favorite, he's getting chased a little bit by Alexi Ramirez from the White Sox. There's only about a 80,000 lead now, and Derek Jeter had a big lead in that vote up until about a week ago, and Ramirez seems like he's closing that gap. Designated hitter Nelson Cruz leading the way, and for catcher is Matt Wieters from the Baltimore Orioles. Got a big lead over Brian McCann of the Yankees.
And that's a little surprising, as I have apparently frozen.
I saw that, but now you're back.
Okay, I'm still frozen.
That's what we do sometimes with live video podcasts, especially. Of course, our audio listeners do not see that, but if you're watching the show, please bear with us for a moment, and we'll have it back for you, I'm sure.
Well, you're more positive than I am, but I'll just keep talking anyway, and those little gremlins will see if they can work them out again. But
yep, we can go with it. Not a problem. But to get over to some of our stats, I'd like to share some of our stats with our video watchers, and we appreciate everybody that stopped by watching the show, Gary. And you can find us by searching MLB This Week at youtube.com. You can find our channel, and there you'll see a list of all of our videos that we have. This will be number 13. And you can actually subscribe to our show, so you can get an email when we do a show, or when we do a show live, you may get an email to be able to participate in the show. So we appreciate you listening to the show, and last week we had a good amount of views, a nice amount of views. This is getting bigger every week, it seems like. Our most popular show already is show number 11, a couple shows ago, talking a lot about Tommy John surgeries, and some of our traffic. I just wanted to discuss that with our listeners as well. And we have a lot of traffic, of course, from the United States and Canada. And we also have some listeners from around the world. So we appreciate you tuning in to our podcast and stopping by to check us out, listening over at iTunes and Stitcher Radio. And stop on by to the YouTube channel, and please click the subscribe button on our channel.
And don't forget, I'm back. And don't forget that baseballtalkradio.com, baseballpodcast.net, where you can get our individual shows as well as this show, the audio versions, and all kinds of shows from great podcasters across the country. It's a great network that Rich has put together of his San Francisco Giants, Milwaukee Brewers, Mets, Phillies, fantasy baseball, Hall of Fame podcast. There's all kinds of stuff. Japanese baseball, even around the globe. It's not the Canadian baseball. I'm just thinking of stuff and saying it. But check that out, baseballtalkradio.com, and there's even the 24-hour stream. And you can find that on that website, so check that out. And Rich, while I'm talking, I might as well keep going here, and little bit of history made in your neck of the woods with your team, as Jimmy Rollins ripped a fastball to right field for a single in the fifth inning on Saturday, and the Phillies beat the Cubs 7-4. But that was the 2,235th hit of his career, and he set the franchise hits record, breaking Hall of Fame third baseman Mike Schmidt's mark of 2,234. So congratulations to Jimmy Rollins getting the all-time hit mark of the Philadelphia Phillies franchise, and now they'll probably trade him.
Yeah. He was asked about being traded right after the game. Press did not waste any time, and he sort of was philosophical about it. He said, if I get traded, I get traded. Life still goes on. I'm still a player. As he said, he did obtain the Phillies hits record, and he's been with the Phillies for a long time. I don't think there's any real reason to dump J-Roll. I think the pay that he's getting, the Phillies might have a hard time trading him, but I don't know that they would really want to trade him. They have other players that I think would probably be better to put in a package deal. But it was a record that stood for a long time. Mike Schmidt had been retired for many years, of course, and he was the Phillies' home run leading hitter, and he still is the home run leading hitter. But Rollins has been with the team for his whole career since 2001 now. And it was great to see him get a nice outpouring of affection from both Mike Schmidt, who joined him on the field, and you don't really see that too much in baseball. Somebody that you just pass, go out and gave him a hug, and you just don't see that in baseball too much.
Yeah, it's always nice to see somebody acknowledge their record being broken, and that's what you really set a record as a goal and hope somebody. Not hope. Some people want to hope, but you hope.
3-ball, 1-strike pitch to Rollins. A line drive toward right field. There it is! Jimmy Rollins is now the franchise leader in base hits with 2,235.
That was the call from the Phillies announcer there, Tom McCarthy. 2,235 hits, and right on cue, Mike Schmidt came running out of the dugout. And, about a 2 to 3 minute holdup of the game as the whole team poured out onto the field, congratulating Rollins as well. So nice milestone there,
and a nice little celebration. And they won the game, so it made it just right for everybody.
Yes, they did. Well, that was a great story, Gary, and another show is winding down here as we start talking about next week already, and of course only 4 more weeks to the AllStar Game, and we'll be talking a lot of hot stove baseball soon, I'm sure, as players and teams that aren't doing as well look to maybe dump some salary and move some players. And it's always interesting. What I remember most about that growing up is the baseball card has to change when a player's traded. So you get the trade card.
That's right, and you'll also remember, Rich, that today is June 15th, and this was the old trading date. It used to be in the middle of June, June 15th, that the trading deadline was, and now they've extended that a few years ago. But this was the date, and here we are doing a show on it. And one other thing happened this week. We celebrated another anniversary, if I may. On June the 12th, the interleague play was born, and the Rangers and the Giants played in MLB's first regular season interleague game in 1997. Willie Mays and Nolan Ryan each threw out the first pitch, and the Giants won the game 4-3. And you know, we're all National League guys, so we kind of like that.
Yeah, and I am on the fence still about interleague play. I liked it when it first came out for the first couple years, and then at the expense of other National League teams is where those games come from. We used to go to Chicago a couple times. We used to, you know, as a National League baseball team, we'd visit Chicago at least twice, Pittsburgh a couple times. LA a couple times in the season. Now it's one and done. So I wish it would return back to the old way with just National League playing National League myself.
I'm with you. If they want to have a series, one series against a rival, maybe that would be okay. In our case, like the Mets and the Yankees, maybe in your case it would be more Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, maybe like an interstate thing, even though they're in the same league. But I don't like it. I'm tired of it. And I think it takes away from the game. It takes away from the All-Star game. I think, when we were kids, the All-Star game was pretty much the only time you saw from the other league, or on a Saturday game of the week. We didn't have games on every night. And like you said, we used to go out to the coast a couple of times, and you used to have more of a traditional West Coast swing. Now, I don't know if it's because there's more teams or because of the craziness of figuring out these schedules, but it's nuts that they go play San Francisco, like the Mets go out and play San Francisco and then fly back to somewhere else and play somebody else. When years ago, they used to go out there, they played the Padres, the Dodgers, and the Giants in one fell swoop. Be out there for 10 days or so, and I'm sure the Phillies did the same thing. And now they're back and forth. They're all over the place. It's just nuts. And I want to go back to just playing National League teams, and we'll see you in the World Series and at the All-Star game.
Yeah, or at the very most, possibly, like you said, maybe a 3 to 5 game series. Maybe bring in twice in a year, once in the beginning, once towards the end, but not to the extent that they're doing it now, because a lot of the teams, they don't have the scouting against the American League clubs, so it's sort of it's sometimes not quality baseball, and it's players that don't make the rounds in your league where you watch. I mean, a lot of people don't switch leagues. If you're an American League fan, you basically stay with the American League, and vice versa. So it gets kind of tough to watch both leagues at the same time in this Major League Baseball. So, well, we'll have to see if our wishes are granted there, Gary. It doesn't seem that way. It seems like they're doing it more and more. But it was a great show, and I appreciated speaking with you, especially on Father's Day today.
And I agree with you on that. And great talking to you as always, Rich. And once again, I hope everybody out there have a great Father's Day. And Rich, I'll talk to you again next week.
All right, Gary, you have a great week, and we'll talk to everybody on the next edition of MLB This Week. Catch us on Twitter at MLB This Week. Follow us on YouTube, and please subscribe to the show. We'd love to have you as part of our listeners on YouTube. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.